If you're making any real money online, you may have heard the advice that you should get an LLC or establish an LLC, but that's not actually the legal test. And for some creators, forming an LLC too early just adds costs and paperwork without adding any real protection. So in this video, I'm going to give you a clear, non-overwhelming way to decide whether an LLC is the right next step for you, what an LLC does and doesn't protect you from, and then what to do instead in case you're not ready yet. So, hi, I'm Liz Stapleton. I'm an attorney turned online business owner, and I help creators, course creators, and digital product sellers legally protect their businesses without the overwhelm. So, a quick note, this video is meant to be for educational purposes only. It is not legal advice. If you need legal advice for your specific situation, you should seek out an attorney in your jurisdiction. So, my goal is by the end of the video, you're going to kind of have a simple checklist you can run through in a few minutes, and you'll know whether forming an LLC makes sense now, later, or not at all for your current stage. So what is an LLC and what is it not? So starting with the basics, because a lot of confusion comes from people using LLC like it's a synonym for legit business. An LLC is a type of legal entity. It stands for Limited Liability Corporation. And it's basically a legal container you can put your business activities inside of to protect your personal assets from anyone going after your business. So if someone goes after your business, they can't go after your house, that sort of thing. So it can help to separate business liability from your personal liability in certain situations. It can help with making sure you make life easier with your bookkeeping and operations because you're treating the business like its own thing. But what it doesn't do is automatically protect you from everything. You can still be personally liable for your own actions, and it does not replace good contracts, policies, or insurance. And it is not the same thing as a tax status. An LLC can be taxed in different ways depending on how you elect to be taxed. It can be a pass-through entity where you're just filing your own personal income taxes. It could also be taxed as a C Corp. So what sort of election you might want to make would require you to have a conversation with a financial professional. It's a separate conversation than whether an LLC is right for you. So if someone's telling you get an LLC, you can write it off on taxes, or get an LLC so you don't get sued, those statements are a bit oversimplified. So there are 5 questions that kind of should help you determine if you need an LLC. So here's the framework I want you to use. I'm going to walk you through these 5 questions, and you'll notice a theme. It's about risk, contracts, complexity, and not necessarily about revenue milestones. So to make this concrete, let's kind of use a quick example. I want you to imagine 2 creators. Creator A sells a $29 digital template, has a simple website, and doesn't do any client work. Creator B runs a coaching business with one-on-one clients, takes payments for big packages, and gives advice inside private calls. Both might be making money online, but the risk profile is very different. So the first question I want you to ask yourself is, what is your risk exposure? If something goes wrong, what is the realistic downside? Now, if you're doing physical products, there's a higher risk there because of potential injury or safety issues. For services and coaching, you can have a higher risk because of claims about outcomes, advice, and potential client disputes. Digital products can be lower risk, but they aren't zero, especially if your marketing claims can get spicy or your refund policy is unclear. And then finally, do you have personal assets you want protected or insulated from your business, like a house? If your downside is meaningfully higher, that's a point in favor of forming an LLC sooner. So question number 2 I want you to ask yourself is, are you taking on a big contract or payment risk? If you've done client work, brand deals, retainers, or higher ticket services, you have more contract relationships and more chances for disputes. In that case, an LLC can be useful as part of a bigger kind of clean contract, clean operations setup. Third, are you prepared to really separate your personal from your business? If you don't keep your personal and business finances separate, you're pretty much negating the protections of an LLC. This means you need to have separate bank accounts and clear tracking. If you are commingling your finances, personal and business, it's what's called piercing the corporate veil, and you're not going to have the protections of the LLC available to you. Question number 4 I want you to think about is, are you planning near-term growth that adds complexity? If you're hiring contractors, bringing on employees, running a bigger team, signing bigger agreements, or scaling up ad spend, forming an LLC can make it easier to standardize how you operate. And then finally, what is your tolerance for admin and ongoing compliance? An LLC is generally not a one-time form. Depending on your state, you might have annual reports, fees, registered agent costs, and extra admin steps. And those can vary greatly from state to state. Massachusetts, it used to be, I think, $500 a year to file and maintain an LLC, whereas Arizona used to be like $30. It varies greatly between states. So you want to look at what your state is. If ongoing admin is going to become a constant point of friction, then sometimes the smarter move is to tighten your baseline legal stack first and form the LLC a little later when you can maintain it. So here are some common scenarios. Let's do kind of a quick lightning round. Maybe you think I sell one low-cost template or guide. You might not need an LLC today, especially if you don't own a house or some other personal asset that might be open to exposure if someone were to sue you. So your first move in that case would be making sure you have clear terms and conditions, a clear refund policy, make sure you have a privacy policy and that it's staying up to date, and that you have proper disclaimers and disclosures if need be. And even at that point, even if you don't have an LLC, having separate bank accounts for the business, even if they're both personal checking accounts instead of a specific business checking account, can be very helpful. Scenario number 2 is I do one-to-one services, consulting, or coaching. You may want to consider an LLC sooner, especially if you're taking larger payments, you're working closely with clients, or you're promising outcomes in your marketing. Insulating the business to itself and protecting your personal assets as well as your person. Okay, scenario number 3. I'm hiring contractors or building a team. An LLC can help you run your operations more cleanly, but it's not a replacement for having the right contractor agreements and policies. And you may be required to have an LLC or a business license in order to be hiring contractors or employees depending on your state. It can vary, again, state by state. Scenario number 4, I'm scaling ads or my revenue is becoming significant. Revenue alone, again, doesn't force the need for an LLC or some other form of business entity, but it can correlate with more customers, more disputes, more operational complexity. So if growth is changing your risk profile, it's a reason to revisit if an LLC is right for you. And then scenario number 5, I saw someone online say I should form it in Delaware or Wyoming or Nevada. Most of the time, if you live and operate in one state, you're going to be required to file your LLC there. And filing in an additional state is going to require you to file what's called a foreign LLC. And that just means you have twice as many kind of admin and compliance things you're trying to keep up with every year. So unless you live in one of those states, I wouldn't worry about it that much. So don't pick a TikTok state without understanding the extra filings, fees, and admin it can create. Now, if you're not forming an LLC yet, your baseline protection stack should include contracts and policies. If you take nothing else from this video, take this. The baseline legal setup matters even if you never form an LLC. So here's kind of the baseline of things you should have or be utilizing within your business. I want you to focus on contracts and terms that match what you sell. If you have a website and you sell anything, you're forming contracts with your buyers. At a minimum, you want to make sure you have website terms and conditions, a clear policy for refunds and delivery, as well as licensing language for how people are and are not allowed to use the products you sell. You also need to make sure that you have a privacy policy that you are keeping up to date. This is something a lot of people kind of set one and think they're done, but if your tech stack changes and the tools you're using to process data changes, your privacy policy needs to change and update as well. You also want to make sure you have disclosures where applicable, whether that's affiliate disclosures, sponsored content disclosures, testimonial disclosures, disclaimers, and other things that might be helpful depending on your niche. Insurance, when it's worth it. Insurance can sometimes do more practical work than an LLC in certain situations, depending on what you do. And then I mentioned this already, a separate bank account and basic bookkeeping. Even if it's not a quote unquote business checking account from a bank, just having a separate account for your business will make your life easier in the long run. Even if you're a sole proprietor, having that separate bank account for your business income reduces mistakes and makes everything easier. It's a lot easier to then do your bookkeeping, claim deductions on your taxes, and all that good stuff. Now, if you are ready for an LLC, maybe you've gone through those 5 questions and you're thinking, okay, I want the separation and I can maintain the admin. Here's what you need to do. You need to go pick the right state, and generally that's going to be your home state for most creators. Go to that state's Secretary of State's website and their corporations division. Pretty much every state has one. They're pretty much always called that. It should have a guide on how to form an LLC. So You're going to form an LLC and you're going to get an EIN, which stands for an employer identification number. And you're going to get the EIN even if you're not hiring anyone. It is free to do. You do it with the irs.gov website. If you are Googling EIN and it takes you to LegalZoom or something else, they're going to charge, like, you don't need to pay for it. It's free. You do it through the irs.gov website and it takes about 15 minutes. So again, even if you're solo, an EIN is going to generally be required to open accounts like a business account, keep things clean, and, just make life easier for you. Then you're going to need to create an operation agreement. So even for a single member LLC, generally an operation agreement is one of the documents that is required to file with the state to form your LLC. And it's part of treating the business like a real business. Now, if you're not sure what to include, one thing you can usually do on Secretary of State's websites is search other businesses and look at their operating agreements. So if you need some examples to help you figure out what that should look like, go search businesses in your state and see what they did, because clearly that got accepted and they are a registered business. So obviously don't copy them, but it should then let you know what you need to include. And some actually provide you, a form that's just you fill out. So again, every state can be a little different. Step 4 is you ideally open a business bank account. That way you are running your business income and expenses through it, and it's keeping everything separate, which is required in order to rely on the protections of your LLC. And make sure you're keeping that shield strong. The liability shield depends on you not blurring the lines. So don't commingle your funds. Be sure you're signing contracts in the business name when appropriate, and keep your business records clean. And remember, how your business is taxed really depends on your overall situation and how you elect to be taxed. So that is a different thing than the liability protection from the LLC. Now, if you have questions about tax elections, you should absolutely talk to a qualified tax professional. But to recap, you don't need an LLC just because you're making money online. You should consider an LLC when you are looking at your risk profile and the operational complexity that you are prepared to handle, and if that, separation is worth all the admin. And if you're not sure whether your business is missing something important, I create a free guide walking through the 5 most common legal blind spots online entrepreneurs overlook. You can grab that in the description below. And if you found this helpful, hit like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what stage of business you're in, whether you're a template seller, service provider, coaching, digital products, just getting started, at it for years. And, I can do some more videos that you'll actually like. See you in the next video.